everybody. We are so glad to have you for what will most certainly be another incredible session. My name is Jenny Anchondo, and it is my distinct pleasure to sort of take you through these Sarah National sessions that have been up-leveling us, educating us, and really bringing forth some incredible information. So as always, there is a gifted guest speaker with us today, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about her. But let me tell you about the beauty and beast in business. She is Angel Guerra-Chagolla, and she's the CEO of Beauty and Beast in Business. So her career has really started when she went to Liberty University and she studied corporate leadership. She has 12 years of experience in the insurance industry, and she's somebody who has worked her way up. So she started out as a mail clerk, and then over the course of a decade, she created a statewide claims program for an insurance company, as well as a multinational 25-line risk program for a large banking company. So she's really somebody who has taken the opportunities that she's been afforded and made a lot out of them. She combined her education, her experience, her expertise to create her company. And the goal here, the mission for her, is to support other professionals through empowerment, advocacy, education, and connection. There's also a philanthropic arm of what she does. So she can speak on many different topics. The topic she's speaking on today is risk optimization. Risk optimization. Without further ado, I will hand things over to Angel, and then we'll get into the questions at the end. Glad to have you, Angel.
Thank you so much for having me here. So good afternoon, everybody. I feel blessed to be here, and I hope that you do too. I first want to say thank you because we know that our days can be filled with lots of different things, right? So the fact that you are actually taking time out of your day to be here with me and with Jenny, that is great. And that's also what I like to call the cream of the crop, because a lot of people don't invest time or education in themselves or in their businesses. And it's always the cream of the crop who take that time and say, okay, let's figure out, what kind of education's out there? How can I be better, especially in starting a business? That can be a very, very scary thing. Whether you're excited about it or not, it's just something new as you're starting your business. I'm going to be honest. I have worked in the corporate world and worked in a lot of large businesses, but when I started my own business as an entrepreneur, it was so different because one, it's ours, right? So it's our baby. It's something that we're actually investing our time and our money and our heart into. So that makes it important, but it's finding out, well, what entity am I going to file? How do I file them? Where do I go? How much money do I need? When are taxes due? Like all of that good stuff. So today I'm going to spend about 40 minutes walking you through some of the most important parts and how do we navigate risks in business so that we can cultivate the lives that we live. This is risk management and optimization for entrepreneurs. We do see the MA, WCCA, and SIP. Just so you know, I do have my master's in corporate leadership, but WCCA is, I also am certified as a work comp California adjuster, which I did for some years, and SIP, which is self-insured procedures, which means I have worked with businesses and helped them through the insurance risk and claims process from the small mom and pop or small business like myself to the large global businesses that I currently work with as well. So risk management is actually the process of helping an organization understand how to evaluate and take action on all the risks that they view, which is the probable outcome. So when we talk about risk, most of the time it's used as a negative term, and we think about, oh, I don't want to take that risk because risk means I'm going to lose. I'm going to lose money. I'm going to lose time. I'm going to lose whatever it is, reputation, dignity, if we're, taking that risk to dance in the public aisles, which I always do. But, that's kind of what we look at. I want you to really understand that risk is both positive and negative. So you don't get anything out of your business or out of life without taking some risk, but they're calculated risk. And that's the key word. If you know what risk means, then well, where do I want to go with this? What do I want to get out of it when I take this risk? And then we start talking about how do I identify that risk? How do I recognize what options I have? Even if I don't like what I see, you still have multiple options. And so the goal is to walk through the process to get to the outcome that you want. Okay, so risk is both good and bad. When we talk about risk, we do say there is an say time or money loss that could be had. But we don't always think of it as a loss. We want to think of it as an investment, okay? So that we get to the outcome that we seek and the probable outcome. We want to calculate the risks that we take so that we reduce the likelihood of income loss or revenue loss. The goal is to reduce the loss and increase the revenue. So that's what we work with. It's a process for minimizing and eliminating so many different things. And when we talk about risk, we are looking at when we are budgeting for our businesses, that's financial risk. What are we investing? Are we getting grants and loans? What is the risk if we do get a loan? What is the risk if we start opening up, say, a potential restaurant, a brick and mortar, versus a small business or a service that you can do online, right? So we are going to go through and say, well, risk is both uncertainty and opportunity, recognizing what they are for each item or each option that you may have. For instance, if you get up in the morning and brush your teeth, that's a risk, a calculated risk that you're avoiding. You brush your teeth so you don't get cavities, right? If you don't brush your teeth, you get cavities and lose all your teeth. Those are the two options that you have. People don't recognize it as a risk, but it is. What if you drive without any insurance? What if you get a loan for a business that you have no business plan to outline how you're going to make the money and pay that loan back? That's a risk. So it's really just understanding that every decision that we make from when we wake up in the morning till we go to bed at night is a risk. We are calculating what happens if we take A or if we take B. So I hope that you're, following me, because it's really a simple understanding of it. It gets more difficult when our options get more difficult, right? When we have more on the line or more skin in the game. So the more money that we could make or that we could lose, that's when the risk heightens. When we are looking at time, how much time do we lose or how much time do we get back if we optimize a program within our business? That's a higher risk. So let's evaluate. How do we do that? So the most companies' business risk areas can be defined in different ways. We are talking about the value of your business, the products and services. So if somebody has a bookkeeping business and it's online, it's small, and they hold to 10 to 15 clients versus somebody who has a bookkeeping and tax business, they have a brick and mortar and they have 100 clients per year. So we may look at that and say, well, the person with the brick and mortar, they have more risks than the person that has that small business. Well, what we have to understand is it's a different risk for each person. There may not be more risk for the person with a brick and mortar. It's just different. So if we have a small company and she has 10 clients, the risk that she may lose money is very high if she loses one of those 10 clients. That means that if she's dependent on all her revenue, 1/10 of her revenue is lost with the loss of one client versus somebody who has 100 clients. Although the risk of income is much lower if they lose one client, the risk of expenses is much higher because they have more overhead. They're paying for their brick and mortar. They may be paying for employees. They may be paying for utilities for that location. So their expenses are going to be much higher. And that's where you can really see how do risks pertain to me and my business, because each one of our businesses is completely different. Even if we have a competitor that we are in the same industry, my business is going to be different from their business because we market differently. We run our businesses differently. We may pay our employees different salaries. We may be in different parts of the country where in Southern California, it may cost much more money to get a brick and mortar and pay utilities versus being in Iowa. It may be, less to actually rent or lease a building and their utilities are lower. So these are the types of risks that we want to take a look at. The cost and revenue. Again, what are you paying out? And how does that equate to the revenue and the money that you're bringing in? The risk of customer relationships. So all business is built on know, like, and trust. If people know you, but they don't like and trust you, you're probably not going to get their business. If people know you and like you, you can be the party. People love to be around you because you make them laugh, but they don't trust you, you're probably not going to get their business. So really, it takes all three of those dynamics to be able to build a relationship with a customer or a potential customer. Some people will trust much easily and come on. Some of them you may have to make many more contacts in order to build that relationship so that you build that trust and you decrease the risk of not having additional customers. Okay? The business risk in terms of distribution channels. So when we talk about a wholesaler, we talk about a business to business. So if somebody is wholesaling t-shirts, they're the manufacturer, but they sell to stores. That's a business to business kind of corporation, right? Or business. That's a B2B. If you're talking about a B to C, that's a business to customer. That means, let's say, I create Bath and Body Works items and I have my own storefront or my own e-commerce. That means that I'm not selling wholesale to another business who's going to make money. I am selling directly to the customer. Now, how does that decrease the amount of risk that you have? Well, it decreases the risk because you know that you are actually making a higher revenue or profit source because you are selling directly to a customer who is paying the retail price. If you are selling business to business, you have to decrease, even through a wholesale, you have to decrease the pricing that you sell your service or your product at so that that business can make money because they're not going to pay you $15 for a shirt and charge $16. They're probably going to pay you $5 to $7 a shirt and they're going to charge $15 to $20. So the risk with B2B is you have to sell more of your product or more hours of your service in order to make the same amount of money as you would if you were selling business to customer. Now, what's the risk of business to customer? Business to customer, your profit margin is higher, but you have to work much, much harder to sell the same number of items, right? So here you're talking about, I can sell 5,000 pieces of product, or I can sell 20 hours of my service as a B2B. And yes, I might be selling in a wholesale and I might be selling at a discounted price, but in order to sell 20 hours or 500 pieces of my merchandise, I might have to find 500 customers or 20 customers for 1 hour of my service. So the risk comes into play is, do you have more time than money or more money than time? Each one of us is going to have a different answer to that. Some of the key resources that we talk about are marketing, finances, insurance, and employees. So these are resources that businesses need. Even a small business who has no employees is still in need of insurance. And we'll go through a little bit later what types of insurances there are and how the risk of not having the right insurance can ultimately cost you big bucks. We also have the key risks, which are partners in a business. So if you are a S Corp or a C Corp, a corporation entity, you may have stakeholders in your business. You may have sold a percentage of your business to somebody else to a partner or to a stakeholder in order for them to have some type of investment in your company because you needed that monetary investment in order to start, whether that was purchasing product, whether that was leasing a brick and mortar, whatever it may have been. So the risk of having stockholders is you no longer have full control of that business. You may have a majority of control, but you still don't have full control of your business because you have stock holders or you have interested partners that you need to talk about things with. So that's a risk. You may not be able to move your business in a direction that you think is fit because it doesn't coincide with some of the people that you have invested in your business. Board of directors. If you are a nonprofit, that means you have a board of directors. And that is because as a nonprofit or a 501c3, that means that you are a community company. You are there to be able to put positive impact in your community. Some of those are for children, some of them are schools. You know, there are lots of different nonprofits out there, but because it is so easy to be able to take control of those finances because you are not paying taxes, state or federal, the state and the government, federal government, require you to have a board of directors. And that is a minimum of 3 people who sit on a board, and they have at minimum quarterly reviews of what is going on with your program. How is revenue coming in? What kind of profit are you making? Where are you using the money? Is it going in the right place? In other words, if you are a nonprofit for children, are you making sure that the profit that you have or the donations that you are getting for your business are going to buy the services or products that are outlined in your business plan versus, you know, buying real estate or buying something else that's not outlined and not going to benefit your program? So here's an example. A customer places an order online. On your website, you say there's a 24-hour turnaround. So from the time that your client places their order, you have 24 hours to ship it out. But there's an issue. And you ship it out instead of 24 hours later, 72 hours later. The confirmation is now a delivery is 3 days late because they ordered it on Wednesday and you didn't ship it on Thursday so that they can have it on Friday. You don't ship it until Saturday, which means it's now delayed until next week. Well, if this is somebody who's maybe buying a lipstick or buying something for their house and it's not urgent, they may not have an issue with it, right? It may just go over their head and okay, so we got it a little bit late, no problem. But what's the risk if they're buying a wedding dress? What's the risk if they are buying something that really has to do with the business, right? So there are so many risks in purchasing. If you are not actually taking time to outline that you are doing exactly what you say in your business, online, in your business plan, through your marketing, as a business person, the issue becomes they don't have trust in you. And the optimization or the business that you've created can easily fall apart because you lose customers and you lose clients. So this portion of it is really talking about the risk of not staying true to what you market. If you have a website and you outline any of these things, and if you have a website, you should be outlining both your services, your pricing, the turnaround time, and your mission and promise to your clients or customers. If you are not holding true to what you promised them on your website or in the contract that you've created with them, the risk of losing that client is very high. And not only that client, but unfortunately, clients who leave because they have bad customer service or a bad product or service that's being provided to them, what happens is they now talk to their neighbor and their best friend, and they go online and they make a complaint and the Better Business Bureau. And the issue then comes that you are not only losing one customer, but you're losing maybe 10 or 100 potential customers or potential clients that are not even going to come to your website, or they're not even going to answer an email that you've sent because they already have a bad idea of the type of business that you run. So the risk of, again, I keep using the word risk, but that is what we're talking about. The risk of not being true to your business mission and to what you tell your clients and customers is bad faith, and it's potential loss of clients as well as money. So how do we fix that? Well, you apologize to the customer for the delay. You want to define the reason for the delay, because it may make a difference if you say that the delay was, they took it to the post office and it's now the middle of winter, it's negative 20 degrees, and they know that there's a delay in the post office delivery because of the weather. As opposed to saying, well, I was kind of busy and running late and I just didn't get it to you, or not having a conversation with your client at all. Because if we do not have a conversation with our clients and customers, if we do not admit to the faults or the errors that we've made in business, we lose trust. Why does that happen? Because we know that as a person, our mind automatically goes to worst case scenario when something happens. So in their mind as a client, they don't think, oh my goodness, it's probably bad weather. They think, this is a horrible company. They don't even do what they say they're supposed to do, so I'm not ordering from them again. Now, there's a 50-50 chance that when you make that phone call to that client to apologize and to talk with them, that they say, okay, thanks for that, but I'm not ordering with you. Versus, wow, thank you so much for letting me know. I understand that things happen, and let me order one more time to see what the customer service is, right? So there's always an analysis for a reason when somebody knows or when somebody's been contacted. Good customer service can make or break a business. You want to remove the reasons for that delay or for that issue and bad service so that it doesn't happen again in the future. For instance, if you're using USPS, if you're using the local post office and you know that this is something that happens at a certain time of the year, it may cost you a little bit more to go to FedEx or to go to UPS, but you have a higher percentage of rating that they're actually going to get your product someplace in time, because that is why they charge so much. They charge so much because they're flying those products into other states. They're having their delivery people are working much longer hours than the post office works. So you're probably better off increasing your pricing for your product, maybe $2, in order to be able to afford UPS or FedEx, so that you're not having delivery delays at a later time. Yes, there's an increase for $2 that your customer might not be happy with, but they'll be much more happy if they're getting their products or their services in a timely manner. So that's a way to eliminate a risk that may happen in the future. Okay, so let's talk about liabilities. What kind of entities and what they mean, what they are, and what kind of risks occur for each entity. If you have not filed your business entity yet, this is a really good way to understand what is an LLC, what is a sole proprietor, what is a corporation. And that is going to be one of the first decisions you make when you file your company, because that will actually outline the let's say, state regulations and contracts that you need. It's going to outline your county registration and your licensing. It's going to outline the type of taxes that you pay. So these are really important. As a sole proprietor, this is the easiest and the least expensive way to start a business. So in most states, you can start a sole proprietorship for probably under $75. And that's amazing. Where a lot of people think, I can't start a business because I don't have that kind of money. You need money to make money. That's not always true, especially if you're not selling a product, but you're providing a service. So as a sole proprietor, and I'm in California, so there might be a little bit of change in rates depending on what state you're in, but they're pretty even. First of all, you go to federal government and you get your employer tax ID number. That's free. If you're selling a product, you go to your state for your state resale license. Most states, it's free. Where you start to pay is when you decide, I need to get what we call a DBA, which is doing business as, or a fictitious business license. Those range about $35. And then you also have to file for your county business license or your city business license. And those are about $35 to $50 a piece. And you have to actually put it in the newspaper, usually within 30 days, and that might cost you $25. So again, $75 to $100 for a sole proprietor, and you're going to be in business. But what happens with the sole proprietor is you really need to make sure that you have a high level of insurance depending on what type of business that you have. So for instance, if you are working with somebody's money as a bookkeeper, if you are, let's say, creating bath and body where somebody is putting lotion on and they could have a allergic reaction to that, the liability of the type of service you do is a little bit higher. As a sole proprietor, they will go after the insurance first. But if you do not have enough insurance to cover a lawsuit or the liability, your personal assets are now on the line. That means your home, if you have a different business, if you have a savings account, all of that is what they call fair game. Now, I don't want to scare you because a lot of people actually start as a sole proprietor. I started as a sole proprietor 3 years ago. I was having events, but they were pretty small. I was having 40 people or 100 people. I was having them in a restaurant or at a winery. And so the liability that I have, I wasn't cooking the food. If somebody slipped and fell, that was against the liability of wherever it was that we were, the restaurant or whatever. So that's why I started out that way. I wanted to make sure that I had a viable company that was going to make enough revenue. So that was good. Once I started to make enough revenue, I then decided I want to transfer into an LLC because I want to make sure that now I'm doing virtual events, but I'm also doing business coaching and career coaching. If somebody filed a lawsuit and said, well, Angel recommended I did this in my bookkeeping, and I think that's the reason why I had an issue or whatever it may be, I wanted to make sure that my home and my personal assets were not on the line. Therefore, I went into an LLC and I purchased a $2 million insurance policy for general liability. Okay. As an LLC or an S Corp, an LLC can be one person or it can be a partnership. An S Corp is a sole corporation, and a C Corp are multiple people in this corporation. Okay. These entities allow a business owner to share the risk by either one, as a LLC or an S Corp, you now have a separate business entity. So as a sole proprietor, you are your business, right? They're all under the same house, under the same roof. If you are an LLC or a corporation, now all of a sudden, you as the CEO or the president of that business, you are here and your business is now under its own envelope of liability, which means if somebody brings a lawsuit, your business and your business, let's say profits are on the line, but you as an employee of your business are not liable for that lawsuit. So again, it's what kind of risk do you take? How much risk are you comfortable with? What type of business do you have? But it's a good way to understand, well, what happens if I'm a sole proprietor versus if I'm an LLC or a corporation? Okay. It's really based on finances. It's based on how much liability are you willing to take. If I am a baker, I may not want to be a sole proprietor if I'm, say, putting my baked goods into somebody else's store, or if I'm selling, at something other than a pop-up, because of that type of liability. Just so you know, there are a lot of insurance companies out there that work with small businesses. There's one that I recommend, which is called Hiscox, Hiscox. If you go to their website, there's a nice online application that you put in what type of business do you do, where do you live, what's your annual right now, and how much do you want to have on your general liability. So do you want $1 million? Do you want $2 million? And most $1 million policies run you between $30 and $50 a month. That's not bad. So when people say, I don't have insurance because I can't afford it, I like to say you can't afford to not have insurance. Okay. I see here they want a Hiscox, H as in hello, I, S as in sister, C as in cat, O, X. Okay, so as a sole proprietor, again, you know that you're handling the entire load. You're wearing multiple hats. You are doing the finances, you are doing the marketing, you are probably building your website. If you're producing something, then you're probably making it. Or if you are an e-commerce or a storefront, you may not be making it, but you're tagging the pricing, you are dropping it in the mail, and you're probably doing everything you need to do in order to make that business start to grow. Okay. As an LLC business, we usually have more than one person. Now, that's not to say, again, an S Corp or a solo LLC, that's one person. But as you start to grow your business, you have the ability to include a CFO, which can actually help with the finances. Or you add additional employees who are going to help you as you either produce your product or you sell your product, or you actually go out and start to get more clients and need people to help you service those clients. Okay. So what risks are you taking as a solopreneur? We talked about that those are the financial risks. Those are the insurance risks. Another risk is, how do you hire the right team? So when you know that your business is getting ready to grow, or you're opening someplace like a restaurant where you know you need servers, cash registers, cooks, how do you know that you're hiring the right people? Because if you are not hiring the right people, the liability goes up. The liability of a work comp claim, the liability of having a bad corporate culture, every liability that you would actually think of as you're dealing with a group of people, right? So one of the things that I always recommend is having a good interview process, and having an interview process that asks specific questions that are due to that type of work that they're doing. For instance, if you're hiring a cook, you really don't care if they've been a cashier someplace or if they've been a valet, right? Those aren't questions that you're going to ask somebody who you need to make sure they can cook the food that's on your menu. So one, it's asking the right questions that pertain to the specific job duties that they're going to be doing. Two, it's making sure that you're asking all potential applicants the same questions. If you have different questions for 5 applicants that are interviewing for the same position, there's a big risk to that because somebody can come back and claim, well, I didn't get the job because there was discrimination. I didn't get the job because they didn't ask me the same questions that they asked that person. I didn't even get a chance to tell them what type of, cooking experience I had, right? So it's making sure that as a business, you are trying to make everything streamlined. The questions that you ask pertain to the roles and duties that applicant will be doing. The questions that you ask each applicant that are applying for the same role remain the same. I recommend that you have 2 people interviewing instead of 1, because it's more likely that we might hire somebody who is much more like ourselves, right? So we take a look at it, and there could be somebody who is an amazing cook. They have great experience, but they may be a little bit introverted, and we're an extrovert. So when the next person comes in to do the application process and we're doing the interview, they're a little bit more talkative, we're a little bit more at ease. And so we may put them and say, okay, we're going to hire them. They actually may not be the best person for the job. But when you have 2 people doing the interview and 2 people who may have different viewpoints, is a great way. You put them together, you let them do all the interviews, and now you have actually communication between the 2 interviewers that are saying, okay, let's look at the experience. How did they answer those questions? What type of experience do they think is going to be necessary for this? So those are the things. And it's the same thing when you're promoting somebody. The risk of doing a promotion without actually taking a look and being fair with your employees, that puts you on the line for a lot of different liabilities and risks. As somebody who oversees EEOC civil claims, which is discrimination, which is salary loss, all of that good stuff, I also oversee workers' compensation claims, in addition to 20 other lines. The risk as an employer become very high if you're not standardized, if you don't have application process exactly the same. The hiring process is exactly the same for every applicant. The promotion process is equal, as you're promoting across the line. When you unfortunately have to let somebody go, that the exit process is exactly the same. So those processes have to be, you want to keep on top of those, okay? Do you have a company handbook that outlines everything required by your state and federal for your employees? That includes what type of workers' comp insurance that they have or that you have. What is their job duty? What do those outline duties entail? Are you outlining the culture of the business? Are you having them sign and date it when they receive it? Making sure that every employee has the same onboarding process and they're handed the same handbook. Are you creating a positive corporate culture? So are you leading the way and creating a diverse and an equitable place to work? Are you treating everybody as not just the same, but are you making them feel included? Like you are really appreciative of each one of your employees, that they come to work every day and that they put, their time into your company. So people get these 2 things mixed up. You can be diverse and you can look at your employees and say, oh yes, it's very diverse, but do they feel like they belong? And if they don't feel like they belong, then we're skipping the inclusion part. And that's really important. If you're not paying them appropriately, whether it's, based on whatever that role is in that industry, in that specific location, or within your company, are you paying them the same based on their experience and based on the job duties that they do? Okay, are you working with contractors? So Contractors are really important. It's a great way to be able to get the assistance you need without hiring employees. So, for instance, as a LLC, but as a sole owner LLC, I contract somebody to do my bookkeeping for me. That's their business. They're not my employee, but they assist me through the bookkeeping. I contract somebody to file my taxes. I contract a virtual assistant. Yes, I am able to tell them I need X amount of hours. This is the type of work that I need done, but I'm not in control of what hours of the day they work. I am not in control of what duties they do first, which means they're not my employee, they're a contractor. So you can still get the assistance that you need by not taking on the liability or the risks of having employees. The one thing that you do want to make sure is that the people that you work with have good reputations, because we will reflect what reputations the people that we work with have. So if you're working with contractors that have bad customer service, that may be great at their job, but are rude to clients, or maybe they're great as a person, but they don't really know the job that they're doing well. Either way, that reputation is going to reflect on you and vice versa. So there's a big risk of doing business with companies that don't have a good reputation and companies who are doing things in an unethical way. I want to show this to you.
One of the keys to Apple is Apple's an incredibly collaborative company. And so, you know how many committees we have at Apple?
No,
0. We have no committees.
no committee.
We are organized like a startup. One person's in charge of iPhone OS software. One person's in charge of Mac hardware. One person's in charge of iPhone hardware engineering. Another person's in charge of worldwide marketing. Another person's in charge of operations. We're organized like a startup. We're the biggest startup on the planet. And we all meet for 3 hours once a week, and we talk about everything we're doing, the whole business. And there's tremendous teamwork at the top of the company, which filters down to tremendous teamwork throughout the company. And teamwork is dependent on trusting the other folks to come through with their part without watching them all the time, but trusting that they're going to come through with their parts. And that's what we do really well. And we're great at figuring out how to divide things up into these great teams that we have and all work on the same thing, touch bases frequently, and bring it all together into a product. We do that really well. And so what I do all day is meet with teams of people and work on ideas and solve problems to make new products, to make new marketing programs, whatever it is.
And are people willing to tell you you're wrong?
Yeah.
I mean, other than snarky journalists. I mean, people that work for.
No, we have wonderful arguments.
And do you win them all? Or?
Oh, no, I wish I did. If you want to hire great people and have them stay working for you, you have to let them make a lot of decisions, and you have to be run by ideas, not hierarchy. The best.
So that's just a little way that outlines the kind of risks that you take when you're, overmanage your employees, or you overmanage the contractors that you work with. There becomes that, I would say, tumultuous relationship, like it's not very clear. We only have about 15 minutes left, so I'm going to move a little bit faster, but minimizing outstanding balances. That is bringing down your financial risks. You want to make sure that you're paying off outstanding credit cards, that you're paying off outstanding loans, especially that you're doing it timely. And if possible, you are paying a little bit more than what's needed in order to decrease that, so that the revenue and the profit margin that you're bringing in once those are paid off, they become yours, and you get to invest them in your business without having to pay that percentage of interest rate to the bank or to whoever it is that you got the loan off. You want to make sure that you are not taking a loan against another loan. That is a huge risk, because if you can't pay for the first loan and you're taking a second out, all of a sudden you are increasing the risk and liability that if you cannot pay one payment, you cannot pay the second either, and your business is going to close. You want to make sure that you know and you understand the percentage rate of credit cards or loans that you're getting from any place, whether it's a bank, whether it's a family member, whether it's somebody who's buying a percentage of your business. The percentage rate, 6% versus 25%. If you have a, let's say, home loan that you've utilized, or you have a personal loan, you may be in the 6 to 10%. If you are at a credit card, you're probably at 20% to 25%. And some of the credit cards are right now increasing to 29 and 30%. So that interest rate is so high that the risk of you having to pay double what you borrowed is extremely high. So we want to make sure that we're getting rid of that. You can attempt to crowdfund for grants. That's a great way to, get your family, your friends, your community to invest in you and your business. It is a gift of money that they give you because they believe in the support of your dream and the business that you're building versus getting loans. There are lots of ways to get grants as well. You can go through the SBA. You can go through your local your local women's business center. There are a lot of Chamber of Commerce, different places that you can go online to find grants. You can also take a look and go to Google, put grants for minority, grants for women, grants for, whatever, grants for restaurants. And you can take a look and see what's out there and what's applicable to you. So you want to limit the debt, okay? Again, insurance. General liability is for anything that comes your way, whether, they're complaining that they didn't get the service or the product that they got, or they had a slip and fall in your business. Workers' compensation is for your employees. If you have one employee, you need workers' compensation. Errors and omission. You only need that if you're a corporation that has a CEO or a COO, and you have a board of directors, because that E&O and that D&O, which is directors and officers, that's going to cover that top layer. If you have a license, such as an attorney, a certified bookkeeper, a certified tax preparer, you're also going to need E&O, because that's errors and omissions. If you make a mistake on somebody's finances and they sue you, that insurance is going to cover that mistake. Okay? Property insurance, if you have a brick and mortar, you need property insurance so that it covers if there's an earthquake or a fire or something happens. Business continuity insurance, you want to make sure when COVID happened and people had to close their restaurants, their hair salons, whatever it may be, those that had business continuation insurance, they continued to get a paycheck from their insurance that they paid into because they didn't have any money coming in through their business. Okay, so these are a few that you can actually look into depending on what type of business entity that you have. These are ways that you can actually get revenue to start your business. But I want to answer a couple of questions before we close out. Jenny?
Yes, thank you so much, Angel. We are going to do 10 minutes rapid fire, getting as much information as we can. And this was a really good question we just got, and that is just, if it's just one person, small business, starting it at home, what do they need in order to legally start selling something?
Okay, so you need to have a resale license from your state. So you would go to your state website for that. And then you would need a city or a county license, depending on what state you're in. So if you are like, I don't know, city of Austin, you're probably going to look into that. If you're the county of Los Angeles, then you would look into the county of LA. And that's pretty much all you would need in order to start that. I would recommend that you go to the irs.gov and you get what they call an EIN number. and that's an employee ID number. It's free. And the reason why I recommend that is because if you go and do pop-ups or you work with a contractor, they may ask you for a W-9. And that's a way that they cut you a check and they record that they paid you. If you do not have an EIN number, you have to use your social security number. And that's a risk that we don't want to take.
Yeah, go ahead and elaborate on that really briefly. So you don't want to use your social security because what can happen if you're doing that?
So if you use your social security number, that means it's open to anybody who you're handing or who actually sees that form. So maybe you're working with somebody and you're like, yeah, I trust that owner, but they have an assistant that they hand it to, and then a manager that they hand it to. Now they have your name, your home address, your social security number, and the name of your business. That is where we see fraudulent items come in, where people actually take your identity and they use that identity to file to get credit cards or whatever it is. So getting, again, an EIN, employer ID number, through the federal government, it's free and it will save you a lot of headache.
Excellent. Thank you for elaborating. When people are newer, that's a concept people are still trying to learn. Somebody was asking about that non-fee filing. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that? Everybody's wanting to know, okay, how can I get started for the lowest cost?
Okay, so as a sole proprietor, again, the EIN number through irs.gov, that's free. If you go to your state for a resale license, those are normally 99%, they're free. When you get into the payment or the low payment, that is when you go to your county or your city for the business license. And if you're using your own name, so if I said, I'm Angel Chagolla Consulting, then I don't need a fictitious business license. All I need is my county license, right? So that's $35 to $40. That keeps it minimal. But my business is called Beauty and Beast in Business. Therefore, I need a fictitious business name. So I get that secondary certification, and that was about $35 as well. So those are the things that you'll need to look for.
Great. When it comes to insurance, how do you make sure that you have enough to cover? I love that you shared the average price for example, 1 million, because people immediately hear, oh, $1 million worth of insurance. There's no way I can do that. But how do you reason if you're just starting out how much you need?
So I would say if the money that you're creating and the price of your service or your product is low, then a $1 million, and I believe that's the lowest general liability that you can get, it's perfect. When you start to increase is when you are now making, $200,000, or the type of product that you're selling or the service that you're giving is a high end. So if you're working with somebody's bank account and they have a lot of money in there, you want to make sure that you have $1 to $2 million. But to start out with, $1 million is perfectly fine.
Excellent. Very helpful. Now, people are wondering about, again, just getting started for the lowest cost. Are you familiar with any grants that are available, or how people would find grants for minorities or women or any of these other populations?
So if you go to sba.gov, they're in every state. They can actually, they will have an outline of different grants and where to find grants. If you go to your local women's business center, you can find grants for females and minority business owners. You can actually go to, if you have a Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, a Black Chamber of Commerce, Asian Chamber of Commerce, anywhere you live, they're going to help you as well with not just minority or female, but for grants that are specific to your ethnicity or your age group. So those are places. If you go to grants.gov, that's another place. And what grants.gov does is actually gives you an outline and says, hey, right now, these are all the different companies or organizations that are giving grants. You can take a look at those too. So there's lots of places. What I do recommend is you do not want to pay money for a grant unless you know that that grant is coming for a bank. So what happens is a lot of times we think those websites were like, oh, well, it says, .go, and we're like, oh, that's a government website. It's not. So you want to make sure that you are not paying $100 or you're not paying these fees in order to apply for a grant, because most grants that you apply for are free.
Very, very helpful, very important. When it comes to the employee handbook, that's something that you mentioned. And so some folks starting out, they'll just have maybe 1 or 2 employees. Is there a process by which people need to do that handbook? Is there any sort of regulations, or is it something that each business owner comes up with on their own?
So some specifics that should be in everybody's handbook is your local state workers' compensation insurance information. So if you have work comp through, I don't know, Hartford, they're going to give you documentation, and you can actually call your work comp insurance person and say, hey, can you hand me the information that I need for my employee? They'll email it to you. You pop it right into your handbook. You also want to make sure that it outlines your business mission. You want to outline the job description and duties that you've hired that person for. And, there are a lot of little intricate things like FMLA, which is through the government. So, it's family leave that you can actually go to irs.gov and get information that's able to print out there. And if you have payroll that's coming through a company such as Paychecks or something like that, I highly recommend you call them, because they also have HR people and they can help you put something together. And that's always a good way to go, because that they're very detailed in what they do.
Excellent. Now, wrapping up here, talking about your, sort of process, starting out in the mailroom, then working your way up. Any advice for people who kind of feel like, okay, I'm just kind of getting my feet wet in the working world, but I have big dreams for myself? What's your advice for them?
Stay positive. I always believe that positivity, hard work, and focus. Those are the 3 things that will get you everywhere you want to go. It's not easy, because a lot of people, that's so hard, or they'll say you can't do that, or I heard that so many times. Just remember that there's a few reasons why people say that. One, it's because they love you and they don't want to see you hurt if something doesn't work out, right? But you have to remember that this is your dream, or this is what you want to do. So you have to stay on top of it. And 2, it's because those people may be deflecting their own feelings of inadequacy onto you. Remember that you have everything that you need to be successful, as long as you continue to seek out education, right? Because you want to make sure that if you don't know how to do something, you find somebody who does, or you get a mentor, or you buy a book. Like, there's so many ways to get information for free now. So you can actually contact me. I'm at the Inland Empire Women's Business Center. I have my own business, which is at www.beautyandbeastinbusiness.com. And you can also find me on LinkedIn, which is an amazing place to find business. If you have a business or you are a career person, you want to be on LinkedIn. And on my website, I have a blogs page where I actually wrote a blog called Making LinkedIn Work for You. It's something that I give to all my clients, and they grow their networks so successfully, and they find so many potential clients. So that's free. I hope that you have a chance to go there and find it.
But Angel, thank you. That was beautiful. I'd love to end on that positive note, just with a bit of inspiration, a little bit of mindset work. So I just posted her website up there. You will see Sarah National's website up there as well in the chat. So don't forget, everybody, these events that happen every week for you are also replayed. They will be up on YouTube. And I saw a couple of you asking for, some follow-up questions, or repeat that. That is going to be up on the YouTube channel. So be sure to subscribe to that so you can go back and watch the replay of what Angel just said. In fact, it's now linked up in the comments so that you can watch all of these events. And I just really appreciate everything that you shared with us today, Angel Chagolla. And thank you for the note about the freebie on LinkedIn. I'm going to look that up myself. That's going to be wonderful. Thank you to everybody who joined today. We look forward to continued sessions, same time, same place, and we will talk to you all soon. Bye-bye, everybody.